What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the greatest combat sports and culture show on the Italian Universe to Fight podcast. I'm your host, SERG VICENTE, and today we have a special day. Obviously, normally what we're going to do is we always break down all the best fights of the weekend and, what's to come. This one is a little bit near and dear to me because it is a little different. Granted, don't get it twisted. We will talk about Tank Davis and those things later on today. So make sure you tune in, like, share, and subscribe to this channel and everything else to get those type of conversations. But we're talking about another fight. I am somebody that, and those of us who followed the Fight Podcast know, I actually 25 years old. I had aspirations to become a pro fighter. I was moving forward in the ranks, and I ended up getting testicular cancer. So that kind of stopped me from growing and wanting to continue. It took me 2 years off. I wasn't able to continue competing in the sport. And there was just a lot to know. Obviously, there's fear. There's so many different things. But I was very, very fortunate that I had a great team of doctors. I was at Northwestern in Chicago. They really took care of me, and I was able to learn a lot. And I was able to actually, learn about it. And I was able to actually find out about it early on. So I really lucked out. But with that and the people that are affected, again, this show is for the culture. This show is for, people that look like me. So I want to make sure that we have the ability and to know people whom are giving us, and who, the best possible care and information out there. So today on the show, we are bringing Dr. Kelvin Moses on the show. He's an associate professor of urology at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. He's going to talk to us about this, and 06 frat brother of mine, so appreciate that, brother. So let's bring him on the show. Dr. Kelvin, what it do? Welcome to the show. 06.
Yes,
How's
sir.
everything?
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, brother. I really appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Number one, just having me and bringing up this topic. Very important.
Absolutely. No, it is important. And I think it's something that we do not talk about enough. One thing about our communities is that when things happen, especially medically, we want to a lot of times, sweep them under the rug or do different things like, that's not it. Everything from mental health to physical health, we just try to push it on. Generational trauma has taught us much.
Yes,
So
indeed.
But to have these conversations, like you said, is so important. So even before we get into this, I mean, again, being a Black man, there's so few of us in that field. What brought you to urology? How did you end up becoming a doctor of that in this space?
Yeah. When I started medical school, I actually was really intent on becoming a cardiac surgeon and did a lot of research and had mentors. And just through the journey of medical school and graduate school, I met a lot of other mentors. I
Okay.
got some research done in prostate cancer.
Mm.
And over time, I began doing health talks at churches and fraternal organizations. And it always ended up talking about prostate cancer or men's health or
Yeah.
erectile function or whatever.
Mhm.
And so that's what got me into urology. And I eventually became a urologic oncologist. So I focus on cancer. So that encompasses testis cancer, which we'll be talking about today, and prostate cancer and all those malignancies that affect the genitourinary system. Right? So that's my journey into how I got where I am today.
It's interesting how like things end up happening. You're interested in one thing, it just moves to another, and moves to another, and moves to another, and then you finally get. And at the end of the day, you're in a position to help people. That in itself has to feel great. I mean, obviously it's a difficult job and you're in a difficult space, but to be able to have those conversations and things, was that something that you always were searching to do? Were you always somebody that wanted to help people coming up?
Yeah, I've wanted to be a doctor really since early age. Probably not the greatest role model now, but back when I was a kid, you remember the Cosby Show was on, and
Hey,
he was a doctor.
Heathcliff, what should I say?
Yeah, yeah,
It's a different dude, man. I
that was
separate
Dr.
the two.
Huxtable.
Dr. Huxtable's a
Yeah.
different dude.
So yeah, early on I was interested, and you mentioned about the gratification. It's such a great field, and as a cancer doctor, we have a lot of tough conversations with people.
Absolutely.
Can't help everyone, but you always want to give them options and give them hope. And the ones that you can help, super grateful. And I've always focused on
This guy.
underserved population, people who are not insured, come from communities that don't have access. And, these folks, they can't always pay, or, they have to find a way. But
Right.
some of the most grateful and happiest people, because you've given them a new lease on life.
Mm. That's amazing, and it is one of those things that the community is affected. I think a lot of people would be surprised, because I think when people think of cancers and things of that nature, I think a lot of us look at older people,
Mhm.
and testicular cancer, from what I understand, please correct me if I'm wrong, um, it is a young man's disease. It is one of those, things. So, who are the people that, for instance, for these type of cancers, not just testicular cancer, like who are the ones who are most affected? And I have a follow-up after that, but just
Okay.
in terms of that, yeah. But who are those, in your opinion, who are the most affected?
Yeah. So testis cancer is actually the most common cancer in males age 15 to 35. There are there's blood cancers and things like that you can see in younger children,
Right,
but
right.
it's typically a young man's disease. And so, like you said,
Mm.
you were diagnosed at age 25. That's like the peak incidence. Now, there are some types of testis
Lucky me.
cancer. Yeah, some types of testis cancer in really young kids, 3, 4, 5 years old. And then there are some in older men, 40s,
Okay.
50s, even 60s. But
Interesting.
that peak incidence is 15 to 35.
Mm. And is that something that is essentially, is it genetic? Is it environmental? Like, what is the reason that, especially again, these are men that are, in obviously peak form, should be in
Mhm,
peak health, granted, because of the foods that we're eating, and because of, obviously, there are, mutations within, cellular structures, because of the toxins that we're getting, everything from microplastics to,
mhm.
refined sugars and processed foods. And again, because of, like, I've obviously, ever since then, I've been into biohacking a bit. So
Mhm,
I I
mhm.
I, I am I'm into it. But please, like, what is the primary reason that people are actually getting that? Like, what, in your opinion?
So in general, when you talk about cancers of
Mhm.
young people, it's almost always a genetic factor.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
incidence is rising over the last few
Mhm.
decades, and it may be environmental as far as temperature. It may
Yeah.
be microplastics. It may be some
Yeah.
exposures to hormones that are in our food.
Mhm.
But it is essentially a genetic disease. As far as the risk factors, I mean, obviously being male, in young children who, some boys, their testicle doesn't descend all the way down into their scrotum. It can be up in their
Interesting.
groin area or still up in their abdomen, in their belly.
Right.
That is a risk factor for it.
Interesting.
As far as specific foods or environmental toxins, I'm not sure of any
Mhm.
uh, particular association that's been made, but the incidence is rising. If you look at some of the population level data over the last several decades, that number is going up, and it's among the highest in North America, Northern Europe,
Man,
um, and in Japan as well.
really?
But yeah,
So
there
this
it
is like a
certainly.
globally, this is happening
Oh
right
yeah,
now.
oh yeah, definitely,
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay.
In twin studies and family members that have had testis cancer, it does raise that risk
Mhm.
as well.
Wow.
But for the most part, we consider it a sporadic genetic disease.
It now, does it seem like it's something that is passed down from father to son, or is it that sporadic?
It can be. So there are families that have a higher incidence. If you look at the overall risk, it's
Mhm.
only about 1%, and it's what we would call a relatively rare
Man, I need
cancer.
to play the lottery,
Yeah,
yo.
you
This is
should.
insane,
I tell my
man.
patients that, like, you hit the bad lottery, now you're due for a good one.
I'm telling you, man. Yeah, dude.
Yeah. But yeah, first degree family members, so fathers, brothers, sons, that does double the risk. So it's still
Okay.
low, 1 to 2%, but that
Yeah.
does
Yeah.
double the risk. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, let's talk about this then, because again, now we're seeing why it's happening. We understand that it is genetic, but in terms of prevention, because again, one thing that I am realizing more and more that I am looking in and researching biohacking. I'm getting all the books, all the Dave Asbury's and all the Brian
Hmm.
Johnsons, all
Hmm.
those books. I'm all into, man. So I want to know, in your opinion, because one thing I'm noticing and I'm realizing that regardless of the genetic lottery, so to speak, that we are given, we have an opportunity to make changes.
Yeah.
How can we prevent these things from taking place if we do have, again, one, if we just don't want to have it, like,
Sure.
damn that, I want to make sure I keep my body as peak form condition as possible. Like, what are some of the things that we can do to or that are more preventative?
Yeah. When you talk about any cancers or really any chronic disease, the best way to avoid it is what we call a healthy lifestyle. So
Hmm.
physical activity at least 30 minutes, 4 or 5 times a week,
There we go.
healthy diet. And really what we talk about healthy diet is eating foods that are as whole or near as whole as
There we
possible.
go.
So
Man,
yeah, the
it's
way the
amazing how people don't realize that, and
yeah.
it almost blows my mind when we go to
Mhm.
the grocery store and everything is when you and that I feel like, and I'm sorry to cut you off. It's
No, it's
just
okay. Yeah.
more it's like when you go to the store and you look around and everything is in bright red and blue,
Yeah.
and then you're like, "Yo, none of this shit is edible.
Yeah.
None of it I should be eating. Everything is processed.
Yeah.
Everything has GMOs." And when it boils down to it, you need to make sure you're eating whole foods.
As
That is
close
the
as
best.
possible.
There it is,
Close as
man.
possible.
How do
And
you
so
feel?
when you like, if you tell somebody, you mentioned the grocery store,
Yeah.
you know, if you can afford organic, if you can afford non-GMO, great. But even if you can't,
Okay.
the majority of what you eat should be at the periphery of the grocery store, right?
Ah,
The
see?
fruits and vegetables, the lean meats without
Yeah.
frying them. If you eat dairy, then try to get, as close to non-GMO or non or sorry, or organic. Everything
Mhm.
in the middle is going to be highly processed because it has
Right.
to have a shelf life. And so, not everybody can do that, not and or afford to do it all
Interesting.
the time, but as close
Right.
as possible, a healthy diet, physical activity, don't smoke, limit or avoid alcohol,
Mhm.
positive mindset. All these things help to
Mhm.
avoid diseases of inflammation and chronic disease. When we talk about heart disease, when you talk
Yeah.
about diabetes, um, even testis cancer, the healthy life. I tell my patients that are if all of my patients have cancer, and I tell them if two
Mhm.
people, exact disease, exact stage, exact treatment, JAMA, one of our major journals,
Mhm.
showed the person who is physically active and has a healthy diet will live longer,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And live healthier, have better quality of life years.
Mhm.
And so that's the main thing that my one of my sort of external mentors, David Satcher, who's a Morehouse man and former
There we
Surgeon
go.
General, he gives talks all around the country. He says, I don't
Shout
write
out
the
to
only
Alpha.
prescription I say it again.
Shout out to Alpha.
Absolutely, absolutely. Although
You know,
he is an omega. So
not we
we'll
not
forgive
all of
him
us
of
can be
that.
winners. I
Yeah.
understand.
But he says the only prescription I write is drink plenty water, eat healthy foods, go plant-based if you can, exercise
Interesting.
regularly, avoid
Interesting.
smoking, avoid alcohol. He
Yeah.
said if you do all of that, everything else will fall into place.
Mm. It's so great that you state it in that way, because again, when people, it's amazing how many, especially of us, don't
Mhm.
drink water. Like,
It's crazy.
and it's crazy. Like, literally, I just got refills on this this uh this water pitcher thing that we have, and it's like $150 for the thing. Like,
Mhm.
it's so important to make sure you have a quality source of water that
Mhm.
doesn't have the microplastics and those things in it, and how that truly, and then just the hydration purposes
Mhm.
of it, like how we're not doing that and how much it benefits. And something else that you said I think is interesting. You're talking about a healthy mindset.
Mhm.
And and one thing that I'm realizing more and more, that stress can really affect individuals' health and cancers and things of that nature.
Yeah.
What in your mind, and again, I know you already mentioned working out, which I know is a aspect of it. For you, what is another thing like that people can do to help mitigate those things and take care of their mental health?
Yeah. I mean, you said it, man. Stress kills. Your
Yeah.
body's reaction to
Yeah.
stress, it raises cortisol, it raises all your inflammatory markers. The positive mindset has a lot to do with,
Yeah.
who you have in your life, how you view work versus outside, your life outside of work,
Right.
past stresses, past traumas. Like I tell people, get
Mhm.
counseling, man. Like there is
Yeah.
nothing wrong with admitting if you're depressed or if you're anxious or if you're stressed. Like seek
Absolutely.
counseling, talk it out because if you hold that in, it just is, the old folks say it builds up in your chest, right? Like you
Yeah.
feel that. And so seek out that counseling. Do everything's on YouTube now. You can get on
Yeah.
YouTube and find someone that does a 15-minute or 5-minute meditation. Just do that in the
Mhm.
mornings, like just to get your day started right.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, man.
there's nothing wrong with admitting, hey, I need help, or hey, I had this past trauma, or I came from this neighborhood, or
Mhm.
and black men in particular, we take on a
We
lot,
hold
right?
it.
Like our families and our
Yeah.
work and society and all that. Like you got to unload that stuff sometimes. So
Yeah.
that's why we have our fraternal organization. That's why we have guys night out. That's why we do that.
Yep.
That's just a way of talking out and check on
Mhm.
your brother and check on your sister or whoever, right? But
Yeah. Absolutely.
really building up that community and reprioritizing the things that are important.
Oh, man, I love that you said that. And it's one of those things that it is true. And the one thing that their studies are showing, that people who have more community
Mhm.
live longer.
Mhm. Mhm.
That is important, and making sure you're having that help and those friends and everything around is so very important, man. I love that, man.
Yeah.
Man, it's this is one of those topics that, especially because it's truly become a passion of mine,
Mhm.
being, as healthy as possible, and going, because over the last, I'd say, over the last 2 years now, I don't eat refined sugar, no processed foods, all organic.
Mhm.
It's a workout daily, essentially, what I'm saying? So it's just like, and I've always been an active dude. I used to compete, so it's like
Mhm.
so that was always the simple part, but it was just making those changes in your diet. Because like I said, man, I'm trying to look and feel like this until I'm 90. I don't care what nobody
Mhm.
says. Like
Yeah.
I'm not going nowhere, and I plan on looking like
That's
this.
right.
You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so it's just, man, I Dr. Kell, I appreciate your time, man, because to
Of
me, this
course.
is one of those things that, like, and honestly, and we'll talk about it afterwards, but I think that we should do this more often. Like you and I have these conversations on here, because again, this is the Fight Podcast, and we do talk about combat sports, but this fight is something that is so important,
Mhm.
and I think that more of us need to have these discussions and everything about, and it's just not done enough.
Yeah.
But before we get you out of here, because again, I want to make sure I'm respectful of your time. Again, we talked about a little bit. This is the Fight Podcast. Now, do you? And again, I want to make it a little fun, because it's been a little heavy, and I want to make sure we're having some good stuff on here.
Oh, yeah.
You follow combat sports at all, or are you look like classic fights at all?
I'm proud. I am very much an old school boxing fan. My
Okay.
dad was a big boxing fan. I grew up and I caught, I'm of a certain age, so I
Yeah.
caught
Yeah.
like the end of Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson and the Spinks brothers and
Yeah.
Marvin Hagler and
Oh,
uh
bro, you
yeah.
seem the best. Like, like what? What is who is your all time favorite?
Oh, it's got to be Tyson. It's got to be
Oh man.
Tyson.
What do you think about you? Okay, before I even get into this new nonsense, my man. Okay, I'm here with a doctor. Should a 60-year-old man
No,
be fighting? Okay.
no,
I had to
no,
ask. I
no.
had to ask,
Look,
man.
I would not get in the ring with him right now, even if I was
Right,
in perfect shape. I
right,
understand
right.
that. But at 60, man, that brain reserve is not what it used to be. And he take one wrong hit, even one wrong
Telling you, man.
fall,
Yeah.
that could be lights out. So
Oh,
I mean, I know he's a strong man. I know
yeah.
he's working out hard, but the body can only take so much after a certain age.
Well, I know you saw what just recently happened. The fight got postponed.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
think he had
because
a stomach ulcer or something.
yeah, he had a
Yeah,
bad ulcer on a flight from Miami to LA, back here to
yeah.
LA. And when I heard that, I'm like, bro, that's the universe giving you a sign, my brother.
Something, right?
Like
Like, even if it's just the stress of the fight and getting
yeah.
ready, his body's reacting to that.
Oh man, well, regardless of that one, because I hope it doesn't end up happening.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Mike Tyson moment?
Oh, man. Well, him biting Evander Holyfield should be a favorite. That was a crazy fight.
Insane.
Um, Gosh, there was one fighter
Mhm,
who, and I'm blanking on his name,
mhm,
he was like an up and comer, but he was known to be a really tough guy. And Mike went
mhm.
about 8 or 9 rounds with him. And Mike had a classic move where he
Yeah.
would do a hook shot to the body, shift his
Yeah.
weight, and come with an uppercut.
Yes.
And he hit this man, and I mean, you could just see his soul leave him when he the body shot, and then the uppercut just sort of polished it off. And I mean,
Oh,
he knocked him out. And Mike has since said that was one of his toughest fights. That guy, he hung in there because he gave him the business.
man, it's funny. So I'm putting together. We're in pre-production of a documentary with Michael Second None, who was a monster in his time. Terrell Biggs
Hmm, hmm.
and and I'm blanking on my other boy's name. It'll come to me in a second. But two of them fought Tyson.
Mm,
Two of them are gold medalists, but two of them fought Tyson, one during his run. And
hmm,
I asked the stories that these dudes have about, when he made contact, they're like, man, it's like, because they went in there, both of them, like, I wasn't afraid of him. But
hmm.
they're like that, but you couldn't do anything about his power.
Nope.
And it's so insane, man. But look, the fact that he's still doing it now, he does look in incredible shape.
Yep.
But as a fan, I hope it doesn't happen,
Look,
bro.
man, I
Mike,
don't want to see him hurt. He's doing a lot of great things, and he's got a big business going on.
yes, bro,
Yeah.
keep doing your mushrooms and licking your toes, and
Right.
let's have a good time.
Yeah, for sure.
With Dr. Moses, thank you so very much for your time today. Before we get you out of here, can we let the people know where they can find you, if anything?
Yeah, so I'm at Vanderbilt University Medical Center, Nashville, Tennessee. I have very little social media anymore. My Twitter is inactivated. My Facebook is
We all
down, but
understand.
you can go to Vanderbilt's website and find me anytime.
Awesome, awesome. Dr. Kelvin Moses, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you so much for joining us on the Fight Podcast.
Let's
Everybody
do it
else,
again. Let's do it again.
absolutely, absolutely, we have to. Everybody else, like, share, and subscribe. We appreciate your guys' time. We love y'all, and we'll see you next time right here on the Fight Podcast. Peace out.